Hello everybody and welcome to a new Gingy video. For today I will be restoring this Game Boy Advance that I got for cheap on eBay. Now there were a lot of problems with it, mainly the outside shell being incredibly dirty and yellowed over time from hands, the oils on it, and just overall dirtiness. You can see right here that every part of it, the front, the back, all of it was coated in this layer of grime and yellowing from aging. Also, the screen had been burnt from years of wear and being outside in the sun and just overall use. Now, I love to see Game Boys that are used like this because this was my console back in the day when I was growing up. The screws even were coated in this little layer of grime, as you can see right here. Now, I'm using this tri-head screwdriver from my iFixit toolkit to remove the screws on the back, and then there is one Phillips on the battery cover that you need to remove as well. But as I was saying, this was my favorite console back in the day. This was my only console back in the day, so this really was the console that I wanted to work on for especially the first video on this channel. The inside of it had quite a bit of problems as well, such as the amount of flux, which is used for soldering. It's often just left on by the company as they're trying to kind of whip them through. Also, there were some little friends inside the case as well. Some bugs had crawled in, which is not uncommon to see in this. I've redone several of these for some of my family members, and I have seen bugs in all of the consoles that I have done. Right here, you need to remove this ribbon cable that is attaching the screen. Be very careful, it's pretty delicate. And this speaker also had a ton of grime on it as well. You can see just the amount of love that was used, but also it was pretty damaged and dirty. Now the mod that we will be installing today is a metal mod from the Boxy Pixel company. They provided me with, since I bought it, they provided me with a kit to totally do a metal shell as well as a new and improved LCD panel instead of this screen that was not as bright. Here I am taking isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush to the motherboard to clean it up, make sure that there's no dust or grime or bugs on the motherboard, really just giving it a good scrub down so that it can be clean and ready for more years of use. Now, I did not realize that my camera had stopped recording because the battery had cut out, but all I did was take the LCD panel screen and just test it out to make sure that it was working. I have done this before, and on the little slip that it comes with, it says to give it a test beforehand. I once received from a different company a broken LCD screen that I did try out before I installed it, and they were able to get me a refund just because of the shipping had damaged it in the process. This one fortunately did work, and so I was able to use it. Now this is where I started to encounter some problems because I didn't know exactly how to install it. This is the first time that I have gone through this company and done a metal mod, and I didn't know fully what I was doing. So I was trying to figure it out all by myself because I did not find any helpful guides on YouTube as to how to do this, because all of them were for the old kit. None of them had this new LCD panel that they had used. It was at this time that I realized there was a full guide online when I bought the parts, and I only just realized that as I was putting it in. That made the rest of the install so much easier. Now, I really enjoy electronics, but one thing that I do hate is electronic instructions. I either want to be able to watch a video on YouTube of somebody else doing it so I know what it is, or I want to be able to have a paper in front of me. I hate having my phone out or having to go onto a website to look through the instructions. So one thing that I would wish that they would include is either a video of somebody putting it together or a paper instruction manual. That's my personal preference. You don't have to. Following along online was easy. It's just something personal for me. Now you do need to remove the battery contacts, as I got the upgraded battery as well, which was rechargeable. I'm so excited to have this instead of having to replace it. The AA batteries for power. Desoldering this was incredibly easy, as I just took my soldering gun and some of that copper wick to remove the old solder, with also the flux paste. You need to make sure to have that. It just acts as kind of a lubricant so you don't burn any of the parts or lift up any of the pads. Here I'm soldering in a wire for the LCD brightness selector. You can press the L and R buttons while you're holding down either start or select. I can't remember which one I did here, but that will change the screen brightness. What I like a lot with this mod is that it is not touchscreen, which I have done on my Game Boy Color and on other people's mods that I have done. It's just my personal preference. I've realized that while I'm playing my Game Boy Color, it can sometimes have some reactivity when I accidentally hit it, and that will either change the color of the screen or it will change the brightness of the screen, which I don't prefer. I much prefer having the analog settings that I can set and then forget. So having a button to do it is my preference. It was at this time that I realized that the speaker was not functional. I thought that it was, but it was probably just making some slight connections, and the wire that was connecting it broke off on the speaker, not on the console, as I was working on it. Fortunately, I had a donor console that I was able to take the working speaker out of, and that worked just fine. But if you do not have a donor console, then there are plenty of easy replacement mods, either on AliExpress or some are on Amazon, but I would probably stick to AliExpress, or on different other sites like Handheld Legend, and there are multiple different speakers that you can give, some that are even upgraded, but I just went with the original from a different donor console. One of the things that I was very excited about with this mod was the colors that I chose. I was able to go with a black aluminum shell and a brass button set. I was very happy with this color. These buttons are full solid brass, and I know that they will get some fingerprints on it, and that does peeve me a little bit, but wiping it off every once in a while is not a problem to make sure that I have the colors that I enjoy, because I like them. But if that's difficult for you to kind of reason with, they have multiple different colors that you can go with, and I would definitely recommend it. The wires out the top of the console were the wires that I soldered onto the ribbon cable. Those will connect to, and as you will see, they will be soldered to the L and R buttons for the brightness controls. Now, looking at it from the front, I was super happy with how it turned out. I was incredibly pleased with the feel of it, the color, and the way that it felt so solid. If you want to, you can definitely cut down these wires, as it will take a lot of room to store these wires inside, but for me, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't cut them too short, so I taped them down with some Kapton tape, which is heat resistant and perfect for working on soldering jobs. On the instructions, it gives some areas that you should not put tape. I'm not totally sure why. I bet it has to do with just the construction of the shell itself, not wanting to pinch any of the wires in there, but make sure that that is okay where you put those tapes, and just check the instructions to make sure that what you are doing is correct. The next thing that I'll be working on with this is the rechargeable battery mod. This installs a USB chip inside, which you are able to power through a battery that is installed within the shell. You don't have to take anything out or replace anything. Now, I was very happy with this, as it would cut down on the price of AA batteries. A lot of people do use rechargeable AA batteries, but I definitely prefer having this. I can just recharge on the go. It comes with this little shell that you put the PCB into. to stabilize it and to also kind of configure the wires around so that nothing gets pinched inside of the shell when you close it all up. Next I had to bend and install, I believe this is a resistor. I'm not totally sure all of the names as the electronics, as I have only been doing this for a little bit, but it's a little kind of fuse looking thing that you have to install. Not totally sure, but it totally works in the end, and I was very happy with how it worked. Now, as I continue on this YouTube channel, I'll be very happy to figure out the best ways to film and record all of the mods that I do, and just really anything that I do within this. I'm super excited to have this channel up and running finally, that I can really post whatever I want to it and not have to make sure that it is of a certain quality. Super excited that you all wanted to join along, and I would like to take this time to ask if you would like to subscribe, like the channel. I'd love to see this channel grow in this new year of 2025. Super excited to see where I can go, where I can take this, and exactly where we end at the end of the year. Just checking to make sure that it does power on. Fortunately, it was shipped with a charged battery, which I was very happy of, not having to charge it. And see, it's just easy to install, easy to test. Everything about this whole process was super easy, and I would highly recommend this whole mod. I installed this sticky foam tape on the back of the battery to make sure that it didn't jiggle around in the back of the case. Next, I wanted to install the buttons. The interesting thing with this is that the normal buttons have a little spring that goes inside to make sure that the buttons are responsive and springy. These had none, but honestly, I don't find it to be any difficult. There was no difficulty with it, and it didn't feel off because the buttons are so heavy. Now, this last bit, I just wanted to install a little bit of tape to fully tape down that backside of the ribbon cable. There are two sides of the ribbon cable, and it just depends on what the pin connector on the model that you have of the Game Boy is. I decided to use the cap-on tape to make sure that there were no shorts or problem with the screen itself. I wanted to test along the way and make sure that it was working fully so that I didn't screw anything in and possibly miss that it was not working or I had pinched something. Fortunately, everything turned out super great, and this is my first boot up of a game. Of course, it was going to be Pokemon Sapphire. I've been really getting into this game recently, and I have been enjoying it quite a bit. Everything was responsive, working. I was super happy about it all. Next, I had to install the glass screen lens, peel off that layer of the front, and remove the sticky adhesive on the back to install it properly into the frame itself. Now I wanted to clean everything, make sure there were no fingerprints or dust particles stuck between the frame and the lens, and I think that it turned out pretty great. It was difficult to get it fully lined up and fully centered within the case itself, but in the end I got it, and I was just blown away with how great it looked, how wonderful it feels in the hands. I love the heaviness of it. It does get pretty cold depending on where you live, and here in Michigan it is very cold right now, so it's a little bit cold to play, but once it warms up, it feels great. I want to thank you all for joining me on this first video and this mod. Please like, subscribe, and join me for the next video. I appreciate you all, and have a wonderful day.